I often wonder, you might think this is a little strange, but I often wonder what brings us here. Like here. What is it that says to us it's time to go to services on a Friday night? Or Saturday morning, or any other kind of time? What is it that we might be looking for? I think we're doing something that a lot of our neighbors aren't. I'm not talking about folks in the Jewish community, I'm just talking about people in general. That there is something that is challenging, I think, to step forward and do something that others might think of as religious. And I'm struck by it. I'm struck that we're never alone here. There are always others. And we're all have a yearning for something. We're all looking for something. But I think that this kind of exercise might feel foreign for a lot of people, maybe even some of us in our tent, but that's okay. I really think that's okay. Tonight I'm reminded of the Torah reading for this particular Shabbos, for this Shabbat, and it describes how our ancient ancestors finally made it. We're at the end of the book of Numbers. They finally made it to the land of Canaan. Eventually it's going to be called by us the land of Israel. And they were about to cross over this Jordan River, and they're dividing up all of this land. Every tribe is taking just a little piece. But one group of people that's not exactly a tribe, but they are the Levites. And they don't get any land. All of the other tribes have different amounts of land depending upon the number of people in the tribe. But the Levites, nothing. So they are instructed when they divide up the land, make some room for the Levites in all of these other Levitical towns. Levites, Levitical, you get the point. So they still have a point. They still have a place within the community, among all of the population. Now, the Levites are going to be priests. They're going to be Kohanim. But there's other Levites that are not Kohanim. Some are they're going to be families, but there's other type of subgroups within this whole tribe of Levi. And they have certain jobs. And within the communities, part of their work is to take care of some of the religious and the civil responsibilities within the community of Israel. Fine. But then the text says there are these 6 cities of refuge. A city of refuge. The Hebrew is Ir, which is a city, Miklat. And that was going to be, and Miklat today is a bomb shelter. So this Miklat, this city of refuge, was a place that people could go if they unfortunately ended somebody else's life, but it wasn't premeditated. So if there was an accidental scenario where somebody lost their life, in the ancient world, there was a theme throughout this region of blood avengers. You could go and execute somebody else in the slayer's family, the person who engaged in this act. For us, this seems like comic books or Off the Walls or Indiana Jones, but this was what the reality was. So for the one who committed this act and ended somebody's life but not premeditated, they would have refuge in one of these cities. It's always kind of fascinated me that they would have a place to go. Maybe it would be easier for them for not being looked upon as an outcast or somebody that is this terrible person who made a terrible mistake. Maybe it would be easier for the surviving family that they didn't have to know that somebody was out there, but also more lives weren't going to be lost. So there were these places that priests and other Levites lived in, these cities of refuge, and they would take care of the city, but other people would go for asylum. And then I mentioned kind of quickly that today, a miklat can save somebody's life in a very different way. I remember my miklat that I had to live in during an earlier Gulf War, and Saddam Hussein is sending Scud missiles to Israel, and we had to go into our bomb shelter that was above ground, and that was good because they was concerned about gas, if you remember some of these things from 1990. So we would go into this bomb shelter. Naturally, whenever there was the siren, this azaka, I would sleep through it, and people had to wake me up in their gas masks. It was a terrible experience for me. I still, it came right up and right out to you. This miklat is another kind of shelter. It protects us from another kind of a threat, or protects those in Israel from another kind of a threat. But I don't think that miklat has to only be in these two categories. I think we need to reclaim this idea of miklat for ourselves, a place where we can find shelter. This tent isn't a great shelter. It's working for us. Some I know it's too hot for you, but today's a nice night. We know that last week I was almost blown over by the wind, which shows you how strong the wind must have been. But it's not going to be this massive, amazing shelter that protects us from everything. That's why my favorite holiday also is Sukkot. If I was to tell everybody, come on one day, I'd say, skip Yom Kippur. You're like, yeah. I saw that. Skip Yom Kippur, and I'd say, come on Sukkot. Because the message of Sukkot is that life is tender. It's fragile. It is beautiful and amazing and majestic. And we need some times of coming together for this miklat, another kind of refuge, shelter, place that's going to protect us. I'm going to say that I need recent storms of your own. But the idea of refuge and miklat, a place where we can come together and where we can take care of each other, that's the function of the synagogue. That's the function of any house of worship worth its salt, is that we are going to have a place to go and sit. You don't need to talk. You don't need to do the small chatting, except when I tell you to introduce yourselves. You don't have to do anything other than be here. That's what I think we need to work on. Because on this beautiful evening with these cool breezes, and some of you getting some sunshine on the sides, there's still a lot of storms out there. But this one last part about the miklat for me, I don't come here to hide. I come here to be recharged. I come here to be seen and to be known just a little bit. I come here because in a few more hours after Shabbat, I'm going to have to go back out there and live in this very messy world of ours again. So maybe it's time to reclaim the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge, the idea of sanctuary, of shelter, of a place of protection. We don't always get it right at Har Hashem. I know. For me either. None of us always get it right. But the thing is about how we continue to strive, how we try to create a place of shelter so that we can come and be brave and renew ourselves and then go back to a messy, amazing, beautiful, incredible, challenging world and be our best selves. That's what I think the Torah is trying to do for us. So that's the message for tonight. Good luck with that.